everybody. Welcome to, there we are, another episode of a filmmaking, what is this, production diary. We really have to figure out what the name is, right? A filmmaking production diary. The making of There's Something Wrong With Mayo. That's probably the name of the episode. So we're documenting the whole process of making an animated short in Unreal Engine. We did it again. We did it previously last year, and we were very happy with the results. And yeah, so this is a story about a colony of creatures made out of fabric and their war against the evil moths that want to eat them. So this here is the professor, Professor Shrog. So he is a mage who has seen battle with the moths before, where he nearly died, and yeah, he's pretty cool. So this is pre-rigged. This is just bringing something into Mixamo just to see what it looks like with animation, but he's not rigged yet. That's why his hands are totally stiff, but he'll have all that good stuff later.
Actually, I didn't use Mixamo because Mixamo can't.
Asymmetrical, yeah.
Yeah, so I end up using Acticore, and it's kind of like Mixamo. So, am I echoing?
No.
Okay. It's kind of like Mixamo. It's a little bit more complex. It's free, but what it can do instead of Mixamo is that it can mask out limbs in the rig. So that's what I use, and I use their mocap stuff.
Look at these nice comments.
Yeah. Greetings from Spain. Hello.
I found the Gnomon recently. Been watching all the Voice in the Hollow episodes. Love the series so far.
Oh,
thank you so more.
thank you. I know.
Thank you so more. Thank you so much. As you can see, we're very tired today. So okay. Greetings from Spain, teacher. Hello, and Lord Luigi Riggs.
It's a it's a little tongue twister kind of for me.
Ratatouille Lee is pretty tough. Yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone for joining. So yeah. Sorry, Trent. So you did this in what? You did this in.
It's called AccuRig.
AccuRig.
I can show on my screen. It's the one thing that it's a little bit more. It takes a little bit more time than Mixamo, but it's also really easy to use. You have to install the software. But it's pretty cool because again, you can mask out limbs, and in Mixamo, I couldn't do that. So you can see he only has one arm. Do you have this? Do you have the second render?
Maybe. I'd have to find it.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I probably have it, but if you want to show something in the meantime, that'll probably be good.
Yeah, let me pull up. Let me share my screen. And I'm just digging up the body that I did. Let's see.
So these are our three main characters, basically. The professor, Mayo.
I didn't mean to do that.
What did you do?
I took the screen.
Oh, you can do it. Go for it.
Okay, but those are our three characters. And then that's the most recent one. So we made quite a bit of progress. The professor's done, which is great because he moved a little bit more quickly. Each character became faster as we went. Caught the one with the ball head and the balls on his head. That one took the longest because it was the first one, and then each one just got a little bit faster from like the design and the texturing and all that stuff. I'm going to show this. So, for those who've been following stream, you know that at this point that we use Mixamo for testing. I tried to use Mixamo with the professor, but he's missing an arm. It doesn't work. The arm still turns into like a long hand, which is really weird.
For those that don't know, tell them what Mixamo, how we use it.
So, I mean, why don't you say it? You explain things better than I do.
Okay, so you explain things really good though. But basically, what we do is we want to see what the characters. There are two parts to it. Tran does all the fabric, and she wants to see how this stuff simulates early on in the design process. So she will start running the characters through Mixamo so that she could get it rigged before technically the design is even done. So you wouldn't even want to give this to a rigger yet because the design is not done. So you run it through this thing, and it basically is an auto rigger. It's not perfect, but all the tests we just showed you, except for the professor,
Yeah.
were done in this. So it looks good enough for us to see the character kind of alive, moving around. We could do it in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, it's just really quick. We can see the claw simulation, see if there's any issues before we final like a bunch of decisions, because that could really mess you up. So like in Mixamo, you just select like the upload character button. You just drag and drop the file, which I just did. And I can even show you what it looks like. Maybe I should just pull up this pen. Just give it a second. While that's doing that, let's just do this one. So this is AccuRig, which is the alternative to Mixamo, which is what I ended up using on the professor. I could also drag and drop his model in here. And you can see this one, it's taking about, it's about ready to load. You can see the model. I don't have the clothing because the clothing is actually simulated, and can move him over. It is confused where the symmetry is because he doesn't have the other arm. But let's just say like here, you can see this is where the issues I have. I don't.
There's no enable. Like
No,
even
there's.
when you turned off use symmetry, it's still just.
Yeah, if I just have these things out here, it won't rig it. It needs to be on top of a surface. So these are like little points where we're putting like where's the knees.
So you can't like right click on it and disable. Point.
No, it doesn't. It's Mixamo is super simple and really easy in use, which is great. But
Which is great when you want to do everything very standardized, but as soon as you want to make a change like this, you're in trouble.
yeah, now here this is AccuRig. I can move the symmetry, which is nice, right? So I can get it about center. And then I can set it to rig. Let's come over here. Let's see what it did. So yeah, so it did not like, you can see the problems.
Yeah, it gets all crazy.
Yeah, it gets really confused. We could try it again.
NetBug says it's looking good. Greetings from New Delhi. And in the world of animation, you never stop learning. We're here to continue learning. My best wishes live. Thank you, guys.
Okay, let me jump back over here. So AccuRig has gone through this process. So these are like the points that you want to set. You can see over in this window here. I haven't used this very much, but it's pretty easy because I can go, oh, I see. I need to put this here. This is the shoulder. Let's put that here. Let's put that here. So I won't get confused. This one looks like it's for the neck. This is a clavicle, it looks like. And I can put the elbow here and the wrist here. Now for these, I can set to, like, I can select this and just hit mask. And so these joints, which would normally be active, are masked out. So I just have a really simple option. And then I can just place these points. It looks like I was able to figure out the rest of this. And then I just press rig, right hand. It only has one hand. It's a little bit more work.
Figures out the fingers.
Yeah. So it's actually better. It's a better rigger. This one's really confused. It's still doing this because it doesn't have the other arm. So it takes a very long time. Where here, this is going to be fine. And now you can see I have the hands. This is not going to be our final rigger. We might use this for some background characters though. And, just place your points. So you can't do this in Mixamo. It's pretty good. It gives you more control, right? I'm doing this kind of sloppy. Look how it knows the orientation of the thumb with this arrow, because thumbs are pretty complex. So it's pretty nice. And then I just hit finalize character. And this one is still, okay, got through it. Now you can see what happened to the hand. It turned into an arm. It looks fine like this, but the moment I apply some kind of animation, it tries to make a hand out of it. See?
Oh, it gets like all really gross looking.
Yeah. I will say one thing I like though about Mixamo is whatever you see here is free, and they have a pretty nice selection of mocap. I don't really like AccuRig's mocap. You can see it comes with like just very simple animation, and it looks really good. I can press upload this button here to Actor Core, which I already have up. But now what it will do is it will go to their website.
It did put some posing to the hands though, didn't it?
Yeah.
Mixamo did not.
No. It just depends on the thing that you're using. So here, this is their website with their mocap, and you can see it's not free, which is not a big deal for me. But some of their mocap is really, I don't really like it because they're really like really big actions.
They're overacted.
Yeah, they're kind of overacted, and they're not subtle. Right now, here I can find my rig. Let me log in. And let's say I want to choose, I don't know what this is here. I know that my motion is somewhere. So I guess the other thing is I do get confused when I'm navigating their site because I don't know it super well. My actor should be in here. Okay, here it is. So you can see I have a section for my stuff and this weird mocap on it. And then if you like something, and I don't mind, of course, I don't mind paying for it because it's not really expensive. But I don't like most of their stuff as much.
So they let you preview it, but you can't download it without buying it.
Yeah, unless they're free. So, I mean, it's still cool. But still, that gives us this, and it gives us something to test. And also at the same time, it makes me think, oh, we could put this on distant background characters and get it done really fast because they don't have a lot of performance. So that's what I did here. Want to take over? Do you want to show anything?
Yeah, I can show some stuff. So this is very early stuff. Very, very, very early.
I don't know if you addressed this question. Will you rig the characters by hand later when it's ready? Yes. So we do have a rigger who's going to rig our hero characters. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then there's another one. Greetings, guys. Wow, didn't know the limitations of Mixamo. Haven't used AccuRig. Interesting. Yeah, AccuRig is pretty cool. Yeah. I think it's actually really great auto rigger.
Okay, so started playing around with, I'm actually teaching an Unreal class this term. I'm only going to teach it this term. I don't think I'm teaching it next term. But just wanted to start laying out like what one of the last shots in the film will be, which will be when our little guy has to go out on this adventure to find his friend. And we kind of wanted it to look very different from the rest of the film. So we wanted everything to feel kind of sharp and menacing. And the idea here is that this mountain will be shaped like something that I still have to sculpt. So it'll be like a skull, because the whole thing is this is where all the moths are going to live, and it'll look like a big hive. But for now, I just put this mountain in there. So let's just take a look at this thing. So I played around with a few things here. So there is, of course, like the standard Megascan stuff for all the close-up pieces like this. The problem is if you want to use that for everything, like let's say for this thing right here, you could see the scale of one of the big pieces for Megascans here compared to that. It would just take you forever to populate that. Remember, I just selected the whole thing. It's like more like that or like that. It's a very small piece compared to this giant monstrosity. So to just fill this up, I just found that it's much better to just do this kind of stuff inside of Gaia. So I could show you, like if I put unlit here.
There's a quick question about the rig.
Yeah, go for it.
Does it export a rig in T-pose? It can. So you can get it back in the original pose. So ours was like an A pose, or it can set it in a T-pose for you.
Yeah. So this skull is going to be replaced, like I said. But we could just take a look at what we have here. So I created this valley. Then I created this valley here. It's basically the same valley, just doubled up, just trying to hide the seam. See, I did a poor job here, but I don't think you see that in the shot.
No, I don't think you can.
Yeah, and then I just created these kind of spikes, which I need to make another version because I'm just repeating them too much. This here, my shader broke, so I have to see what's going on with that. And then this mountain, just using it over and over and over. We can't tell that it's the same one when you're looking at it through the shot, but these, I do want to make variations of it. Then the other thing that I used a lot on this is William Foucher's Easy Fog. Let me just turn this on, which I'll show you like how kick-ass it is. So if I come over here and I look at this through the shot, one second. It was already going slow as it was. So now the fact that I'm streaming, I'm sure this thing is going to have a heart attack.
Yeah, it's a big scene.
Yeah, so you can see down here, I wanted it to look like the briar patch in Song of the South. Just really menacing and like all these thorny things down there. But anyway, if I turn off just the fog, you could see how that easy fog is really breaking this up. Because if you just use the exponential height fog, it ends up kind of looking like using a Z depth as fog. It never really looks totally awesome. It just looks a little too perfect. So using that easy fog allows you to just layer this stuff up. And what's great about it, because we did this on The Voice in the Hollow, we had fog cards like this. But basically, each one was just a different shader. We didn't have any fancy controls on it. This one actually has really fancy and awesome controls. So I'll show you, like, any one of these things, I could just go to the easy fog, go into blueprints, and he basically has one thing here called easy fog. So you can see I'm just going to grab this and like put it down here, right? This is not where I want it to go, but that's fine. I'll just rotate this like so. And let's just get the scale to be like 0.4. Okay. So again, like I said, it's going to be super slow because, yeah, because I'm streaming. So there's the fog card. And you could scale this up. You could do all kinds of stuff with this. But what's really cool about it is you don't have to go into the shader to adjust any of this stuff. You could just come over here and just go to like the fog density. And like, yeah, it's much faster when I'm not streaming. But I could just go to like 0.1. You can see it just lowers the opacity of it. So you could really layer this up and place it wherever you want. And what's great is they have a ton of other maps here. So you could go over here, go under textures, scroll up here, and go to fog. And you can see that there is multiple fog cards, fog texture, sorry. So you could just go, you know what, I want this one to look like this and this, because you got to have the normal map assigned to it. And now you can see you have this more streaky looking fog, which looks great around mountains or whatever. And that's it. You could control the wind speed. The wind speed stuff doesn't look that amazing, to be totally honest. It looks kind of hokey, and it's basically because it's just animating this like purlin noise. From what I see, it doesn't look that amazing, but that's fine. It's fine. It's not like you have to have windy fog all the time. So really like this. And then yeah, I could show you some of the Gaia stuff, which I showed in both of my classes this week. So I feel like I'm just showing the same thing over and over. But
There's a couple comments. So
Oh.
I love the mood of the scene. And Ben Ramos, I don't know if I'm saying last name correctly. Hello. And then what are the specs of your workstation? So a couple questions.
So I have a really good computer that I don't have installed yet. So I have an older computer just because I haven't had time to swap over. So I have a 4096. Tran has a 3096.
Yeah, I have
3090 or something, whatever.
3090.
Yeah, 4090. But
So,
pretty good computers.
Pretty good graphics card. In general, it feels like it's not just Unreal, but everything that we use needs a better graphics card.
Yeah.
So all the applications like don't seem as CPU driven anymore. I'm sure that there still are, but at least the ones that I'm using a lot are not. They're really GPU driven.
Oh, I'll show you another thing that I did that I thought was kind of cool. So I am using an HDRI backdrop for the sky. And I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I ended up just kind of using like the default one. It just kind of looks really good. I just darkened the crap out of it so that it doesn't, so that it looks more like nighttime. But it basically is just not the default one, but one of the default ones. And it looks really good. As soon as I darkened it up, it just looked like these stormy clouds. So I kind of liked it. I went with it. The problem is I still wanted to get this feeling of like thunderclouds in the background, which I am going to try to animate those guys. And what I ended up doing that I thought worked pretty well was this. If you come out here, let's come back here. You can see that I have these lights back here with a ton of fog volumetric enabled. And all that does is it outlines the mountain perfectly against the sky. So it feels like there's like these bright clouds back there. But it's just this super cheap trick. And you can see when you look at it through the camera, it outlines it really nicely. So if I come over here and I hide these guys, I think these are the ones here. You can see it's not as interesting anymore. I don't know how accurate this one would be. When I look at it, it probably should be behind that mountain, not in front of this one and this one. But I thought it was all right. I could probably move that guy a little further back. So let's find that guy. I should probably start naming my lights as well. So this guy, I could probably grab him and push him back behind that mountain over there. Let's see what that does. I think I might have pushed them too far back.
There's a couple of things. This would be a map painting technique used with 3D layered backgrounds. In Lord of the Rings movie is used a lot in others. This is technique gives good results. I mean, yeah, I think normally if we were not doing this Unreal, we would do like a traditional map painting type of technique. But because doing this in 3D would take too long, but in Unreal, it's not. Like I can see a lot of map paintings being done in Unreal in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd. It's acting weird. I might just adjust it later, but yeah, it's I got to put that guy behind this mountain. What else can I show here? So okay, so one of the things that I tried to do, and let me just duplicate this map before I show that because I know I'm going to wreck everything here.
Here's another question: will there be a Voice in the Hollow and There's Something Wrong with Mayo crossover?
You know what's funny?
Will probably get Tran and Miguel and Tran cinematic universe.
I actually thought that it would be cool if this mountain had the horns that were similar to that tree. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe one day.
Yeah.
We'll have a multiverse. Or something funny like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what the hell am I looking for? Okay, let me open this up. All right, so this is something that I looked into. I like it, but I don't like it. I'll show you in a second. Let me just duplicate this guy because I will destroy everything. Blank.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So let me save this. Okay, so this is it. All right, so what I originally did, like I said, I like it, but I don't like it, is I use this thing here called, where is it? Ultra Dynamic Sky. So it's really cool, but I felt that it was a little bit gamey. So you just come over here and you drop this guy in there. And you could set this to be cinematic. You know, that's obviously not the mood at all we want, but that's besides the point. So let's set this to like 1700. To something like that, maybe. But what's interesting is this. So then you could put dynamic weather. Give it a second. So dynamic weather, you can set the presets, which are really cool. So let's see where this is at. It's just going so freaking slow for me. Just unbearably slow. So there is a preset here that you could turn on. Where was that again? Right here. So you just go to the presets and you can go to like rain thunderstorm. It's definitely not looking anywhere near what I had before. But okay, let me see if I could adjust this lighting here.
Lighting looked like it went nuts.
Yeah, it's all gone nuts. So let me try.
It has kind of a stop motion look. I know it looks messed up, but it does kind of have a stop motion look the way it is right now.
That right there.
Yeah, there was just something about it that felt like really, like the background looked like really painted.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have a hard time matching that right away. But basically it created the illusion of maybe it's, I have to hide this. Yeah, that's what it is. I think it's because I had doubled up my exponential height fog. Okay, so then I could go over here and increase the thunder, or sorry, the lightning. So you can bring this up and bring up and they both work together, the sky with the weather. So let's see if I can get this. I'm not getting, well, you can see the lightning or the thunder clouds, right? A little bit. So the sky looks terrible, but you can see you get this cool effect, but it looked really gamey. And I know that this all, as right now, looks terrifying, but it didn't look that terrifying when I had it all looking all right, but it still looked really gamey. So it just didn't look as good as the HDRI, which is my point. So I ended up just going with this guy, which I felt looks much better, especially when you put in, if you do it just like this, it looks terrible, but you have to put in the exponential height fog, and that made it feel much better. But yeah, so dynamic weather. Let me just do it on a new scene because I think it is actually pretty cool. I just think the scene is just too much of a nightmare.
Let's see. I mean, I think it's like it's difficult. It's already slow. It's like a big scene, and then you're streaming it makes it much.
Oh, it's just dying. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say you go with something like that, and then this again was from my Unreal class, but let's just throw the clouds in there. So dynamic weather. And you could just go in here and put thunderstorms. And let's just increase the thunder and lightning. Keep saying thunder. So let's just crank this up. So it's cool. There's a few things here that don't work the way they probably did in 4.0. But you could see it's kind of cool. Like you get these little flashes. I like that, but it just felt a little gamey. So anyway, I just want to show you what did not work. So that's that. And then in terms of the rest of it, so let's look at this guy again. And I want to show you guys like how I built that valley. So Death's Head. Okay. So this guy down here, all geometry, brought in from Gaia, but I had to do a few steps in the way. One of the things that I tried to do, and I actually want to show you guys because I wanted to test something here and I did not like the results. So there is a way that you can just apply a displacement map directly inside of Unreal, and I just didn't like the results. So I'll show you what I ended up doing. So if you go into modeling, you can technically just select a rectangle. I'm going to turn off align to normal. Because if you don't, you can see that, well, it's probably going to be too small for that, but let me set this to like 30,000. Okay, so you can see as I'm trying to place this plane, it's trying to align it to the normal of whatever the mouse is touching. Very annoying. So turn that off. And I know that this thing is 30,000 units in size. So anyway, you can see I could place this plane there if I wanted to. Okay, I can then, this is something you definitely have to do. You have to turn on the subdivisions for this guy, right? So let's rotate this guy like so. Okay, so we have that. So super important you increase your subdivisions from the beginning. The reason is we're going to apply a displacement map directly from Gaia back onto this thing. And if you do not set your subdivisions from the very beginning, you're going to just have one by one. And then you're going to hit your limit in terms of the amount of geometry it can generate. So you want to start with a high subdivision. Honestly, I've never done it with 100, so this might be too much. So let me just try like a 50 by 50. Okay. So that's fine. All right. So we have this thing here. And now we can go under our displace. And you can see if you do like purlin noise here, there should be a setting here that allows you to increase the displacement intensity. So you can see here I have this set to like displace intensity. I set it to 100. So let's go back to lit, and you could see that it is now displacing this. You're getting like some sort of fractal on there. Okay, and you could increase the number of subdivisions. So you can see you get more and more detail. That's cool. But what we want to do here is not go to purlin noise, but go to texture map 2D. And then we're going to go and find our proper map. Let me close this here. So I have the valley that I have to bring in. So let's come over here. Let me find where I put my maps here. I think I put them. In. Give me 1 second. So we'll just do this one for now. So you can see I'll bring in displacements. And I can just drag that into this. And when I do that, you may not see anything right away. What I'll do now is I'll just go to displacement intensity, set it to 4,000. You can see that it is now displacing that geometry, right? So it's kind of cool because you could bypass a step that I used to do, which I'm still doing it depending on the scene, and doing it directly in here. So when I say I bypass it, I usually would bring it into Mudbox, apply it, and then bring it back in here. But this is pretty cool. The only problem is when I did it on the valley, I started getting this really ugly stepping, and I want to see if I could find my freaking map here to show you. Give me 1 second. I thought I had it just in here. Oh, there it is. It's like right in my face. Okay, so I could just drag that guy in here. And let's bring this guy up. So like 10,000. 30,000. So it's there. It's just, let's go back to unlit. Okay. You can kind of see the issue right there. And it feels very steppy. So I could crank up the subdivisions. So 19 is the maximum that'll let me go to. and it still just looked very steppy. So let me come back over here and go to selection mode. Oh, why did it do that? Hold on, this plane is just giving me issues because usually I have an apply button down here. So let's just do this real quick one more time. So we have our plane, 30,000. That's perfect. Let's plug that in. Where is my apply button? So I should be getting an apply button, but okay, doesn't matter. So we go to our displays, which is down here. Oh, I'm having some issues. Yeah, let's see what's going on here. Okay, so that's fine. And then the displays, that's fine. 30,000, that's fine. Where is my apply button? So let me see if I have to just have my so let's select that guy. It's very weird. I've never had an issue with this, and all of a sudden it's not working.
Well, everything is always going to break the moment you stream.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but there should be an apply button down here that has never, ever not been there, and all of a sudden it's not there. So, yeah, I don't know. Point is that didn't work, so it doesn't matter because it looks crappy is my point. So it ends up looking really steppy. Let me see. There's so weird because it's never even given me a slight issue. It's just worked perfectly. But it's not working today. Yeah, I don't know. There should be just an apply button, and the button is not there. So, don't know. Yeah, it's weird. Is anybody saying anything?
Now it's pretty quiet. The rain looked good. Here's a comment. Give it that old reset.
Yeah, I actually think that's what it is. I just think I need to restart my computer. So, Tran, do you want to take over for a moment? I do have to figure this out.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me share my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay. And screen share.
Which, by the way, it seems like something is happening now. So I think the minute I passed it on to you, it started working. So it's fine. Just show what you're doing.
Okay. So
Yeah, and it worked, by the way.
now it works.
Yeah.
Do you want to take it back?
Yeah, I might as well. Just let me wrap it up real quick.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to?
Just take over the screen.
So it worked. So like I said, it was always working. But you could see when I look at this, it looks like that. I'm not sure why that's happening. I have a feeling that it might be because I brought in an EXR because the other displacement map that I brought in looked fine, but that's a problem, right? But it's great if I could figure out how to get it to just work within the program. So what I ended up doing was just bringing the displacement into Mudbox, applying it onto a plane, and then bringing it back in. One thing that's very important is if you're going to do that method where you bring it into ZBrush or Mudbox, displace a plane and bring it in, make sure that you figure out the scale that you're scaling this model up, because you don't want to scale a piece of geometry up 30,000 times inside of Unreal, it's going to get really crazy with the lighting. So I made sure that I scaled it up 30,000 units, and then I imported it, and that made it perfect. So it fit exactly where I wanted it to fit. But all of this, you could see how much nicer that displacement looks. That's all directly from Gaia. So Gaia, Mudbox, and then Unreal. Okay, so you take over now.
Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, it's stressful. I don't even know how I got it to work because the button still never appeared. So
I've had that happen though. Like you're like doing something and there's not the button, and then you just totally don't look like you know what you're saying.
yeah,
And then the button's just not there.
I'm gonna restart my Unreal.
Okay, so this is what I'm doing. So I've gotten the main characters in, which is great because they were time consuming. And now I am moving towards environments. So it doesn't really look, I mean, I'm in the middle of doing stuff, so it doesn't really look great. You can see my really sad blocking here. Let's see. Let's select this right here. This is going to be like the main room. At least it's very simple. And part of it is like we're trying to keep it simple because we need to get it done. So we had so many ideas, and it's kind of sad that we can't do those ideas like whatever we want because it's
I
just
like this comment. Unreal gaslighting.
because we're super restricted on time. So a lot of the design choices that we're making on this is to save time and to try to move quickly. So a round room to me makes it easy because you can say, you know, I have a window here and I can just duplicate that over, right? So I'm basically can just build a section of something and replicate it all around. And then the amount that I have to build is smaller. So it's easier to me than a square room. So that's why we're going with something like that. And then one of the ideas is, so this would be the wall, and you can see Ka, he's like this orange guy here. Is that we kind of have a dome, not kind of, we totally have a dome here. This is only half of it, but it would be a complete dome. So you would see the other side doing something like that. And then we'd have some ceiling over in this section. So pretty simple, basic layout. The one thing with this dome, though, is we don't want it to be like whatever. The idea in this one is these are vines, as you can kind of tell, and they're all from Megascan pieces. So I posed them. They took a long time because they were really dense. Like each one was like 16 million polys. And I wanted to keep all that resolution. What I have is like a really down res version. Once I posed it, I z-remeshed it, and I did all that in ZBrush. And the file is huge. Right? It's like 18 gigs. Really, really enormous file size. Once I did that, we're going to populate this with Ivy. So this kind of line here is going to be like an ivy wall. So all these gaps would just be full of ivy. And then we got like a hobbit door, like a semicircle kind of door. And then we should just have ivy everywhere. Right up here, we're going to see into the sky. So all this region here is going to be sky. But we don't want to just like have vines. So there will be some other leaves coming out. And these leaves will be different species. They'll be larger. And I think it's important to have them be big because it gives you a sense of scale. Because these guys they're not human size. They're like Smurf size, right? So we're trying to get that sense of scale into the design. So some big leaves here. And this is kind of like a window kind of effect, just a really organic one. And then up here, I'll probably cap it with another dome to kind of clean up the dirty transitions here, so we won't see any of that dirty work. And this will be like one half. The other half, we haven't figured out the design quite yet. But once we get this part, it will help. Now, knowing this, the plan, I know I need a few tools. So that for the tools for the vines, that was all posed in ZBrush. And then for the ivy, I don't want to populate all that ivy by hand because you lose your mind. It would take so long. And there are ways to not do that. So what I have open here is SpeedTree. I have SpeedTree Games Modeler 9.4. I actually bought the wrong version. I meant to buy the cinema version, but I already paid for it. So whatever. It seems pretty much the same. There's some differences, but so far I think it's fine. And then what I have here is my graph. So I'll go through, let me just say, because I'm about to like completely ruin this. I'll go through how you can do something like this. So SpeedTree, I think it's really amazing piece of software. The one criticism I would have is their documentation is not up to date. So like if you're just picking up and starting to try to use it, and you look at their documentation, it's still like SpeedTree 8, and a lot of things change. Like every time they update, they like move everything around. So once you learn where something is, and then you move to another version, you'll open it and you'll be like, oh, well, I don't know. And then you try to look for a document, you won't be able to find it. But it's a really amazing tool if you can just get past that part. I'll just hide. I'll just do a new one. Let me start a new scene. And now I have something blank. And the one thing I would say that I have to do in SpeedTree is I will usually work on a smaller scale. If I try to work true to scale in its life size, it gets really, really slow. It doesn't mean that you can't, but it doesn't seem to work very well. A lot of stuff like clips out, like literally in perspective, and it's hard to like pivot. So I usually will scale it down. So right now this size is like really tiny. And then what I'll do is I'll export these meshes. This is not like a final mesh to actually render. It's actually strictly a SpeedTree mesh, right? And the one thing that if you're thinking of using this technique, the technique is very dependent on the density of the polygons, right? So areas where the polygons are smaller, like this one, will populate more than say this one. It's been okay for me, but I might have to change that. The second thing that I have on this mesh is I have some basic UVs. So I'm creating mask for where I can populate things. And you don't want to cover the whole thing at once. You actually have to break into sections if you want to look nice. That is also a big thing. So let's come in here. I'll go to my mesh tab and I'll hit this plus button and it'll give me their menu. I don't really like it. I'll hit the native button and then you'll get your traditional one. And then I can see the walls here. And I'll say open. And then when it brings it in in a different space. Like it's not Y up. So you have to change your orientation to Y up. Otherwise, it will just look really kind of sad. Once you have that, you have this hand, and you can select the hand and then drop it into space. It's going to say you want to add geometry force to the scene. Actually, you know what? I won't do that. I didn't actually end up using that. Let's do this. So let's go over to my node graph. So this is my node graph. This is my tree. It doesn't have any nodes yet. If you right click, when you select something, you can go up to the top menu and then you have all these nodes. They're technically called generators in this program. They're not called nodes. Nodes actually has a different terminology in here. So I'll call them generators because it will get mixed up with what nodes really means in this program. And I'm going to create a zone generator, and you can see it's now connected. The other thing with SpeedTree is that the graph tends to pop from horizontal to vertical all the time, which kind of drives me crazy. I wish I could organize this a little bit more because it will just keep moving around. Once I have the zone, what it does is just creates like a little circle, and that means I can just make trees in this section. But what I want to do is actually generate off of a mesh and grow vines off of it. So I'm going to select this. I'm going to go to the super long menu, which is kind of difficult to memorize. And then in this menu, I'll have a meshes. section. I'm going to press enable. And then I'm going to select the geometry that I just imported in here. It doesn't show up. You have to turn other things on. You have to press include it in model, place the origin, and then now we can see it pops up. Okay, so this zone now means that I can grow things off of it. If you just drag and put a piece of geo in, it will just be a piece of geo and it doesn't actually do anything. Let's see. Here's a quick question here. Not quite what I'm doing. May I ask why not use Mayo's auto render over Unreal? Is it just because it renders faster? We wouldn't be able to do this project if we were using traditional pipeline. Like we wouldn't even consider it. Like it'd be like, nah, let's not do it.
It would take an eternity.
Yeah, it would take us like 6 years or something to get it done.
So yes, it is because the render time.
Yeah, it's also faster. It's not just rendering, but the work speed that you could work out is much faster because you're getting more iterations and feedback instantly.
But it's all because the render is faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I have the zone here. And once I have the zone, I can add other meshes. So let's say I add some tubes. Right now I have a single tube growing off of this surface. And if I go to generators here, I can increase the amount. So now I have all these tubes showing up everywhere. And this is not what I want, right? So what I had to do is I went to Substance Painter and I created masks for different sections. And you really want to control the sections. If you try to do it all under one mask, you won't be able to control the direction of the leaves. So I'm probably going to break this up into like 6 sections in total. So I have this section here, and now I have this section here. I export that just as a black and white map. And under mask, I can hit this tab here where it says mask. And I can import this. Now, maybe this seems boring, but I think this stuff is kind of hard to find documents on. So anyone interested in generating a bunch of leaves or vegetation on a surface, this will be pretty helpful. Once you have this, I can drag this mask on top of this. And you can see now it's only growing in that select section. They're also like pointing up here really oddly. So we want to change the orientation. There is this light here, and I can change that just to kind of see it a little bit better. And then let me just put like a material on this so everything is not like all white, and just kind of darken it. Oh, let's just make it red. Okay, so it can be seen. Okay, so once I have something like this, I can go under my spine. I can change the height of all this. And then under skin, I can change my width. And I want to adjust like the orientation. So this part is where it's kind of tricky. Your start angle will give you your start angle. I'm going to orient it this way. And then my start rule will give me also another orientation. So now it's pointing in the direction I want. And then I can apply some gravity. So now it's pointing downward. The density is also not that high, and it's not very even. That's the one other thing that's kind of frustrating. So let's put like 3,000 here. And then from here, this is probably the most difficult to position. I can then grow other things off of that. So I can add additional generators. And the ones that I'm adding is tubes. So tubes means it doesn't have any preset on it. It's completely empty and it looks very mechanical. If you want, you can choose any of these other ones and they will look more broken up. But I like to have nothing on it and then just set up my settings myself. So I added trunk tubes. Try that again. Let's see. Sorry, branches tubes. Here like this. And now that creates this kind of setup. Now, if it can be difficult to look at all this. So what you can do is you can select a branch like this, hit the F button, and it'll allow me just to isolate and not see the rest of it. I can see this generator, and again, it's very mechanical looking. So I adjust the count, so it will only have 2. And then you have a spread that you can spread them out so they're not completely aligned. Right, and then you also have a frequency. So I might lower my frequency, let's say to 1. I'll come back to my angle, give it an angle where it angles the direction I want, and then give it some gravity. Now, how do I break this up to look a little bit nicer? You can just add noise. So if I come in here, let's go to my original trunk tube, my first one, and I have a noise parameter. It's basically just a purlin of some sort, and you can just increase the strength, and you also have a frequency control, so you can adjust the frequency, right? So we can get these things to look nice. These are not very visible, so I don't think it'll have like a huge massive effect. Once I have this, I can add a leaf generator, right? So now these are these little cards right here are leaves, and I can adjust the size. The one thing that will be tricky when you first use this is to just navigate all the properties over here, because they're kind of confusing and they're really buried. But okay, now we can see our leaf. Now at this point, this is where things I like about Speed Tree. If you ever made a tree from scratch, you know it takes an extremely long time to make, and each leaf is a lot of work, right? You can actually build the geometry of the leaves in here. So it's material based. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to add new. I'll just call this leaf demo, right? And let's jump over to leaf demo, and I can load these textures. Let me just dig them up. Where did I put these? Okay. Okay, so I load my first albedo. It detects the naming of the other slots, and it fills them in. So I have my opacity, my normal map. I'm going to turn on two-sided. Now, if I apply this material on here, it's going to look really weird. It's basically showing me the texture set, right? And I have a bunch of floating leaves. It looks like, like that. Now we can build the geometry in here. If you go to cut out meshes, and again, this is all attached to material, so the thinking is a little bit unusual. You can see here is none, and we just go to edit. And what you want to do is sizes when they're really large. I wish you could zoom in. And this right here, this little ball, is the point where the leaf is going to generate. I'll just move this off to the side, and let's just say I want to make this leaf. And this is actually our mesh. So this one takes a little bit of work to get used to. And if I click, again, I can see my geometry, and I can add these points. Right, so I'm just trying to make sure it fits. And I do have outside geometry I don't like all these sections here. And I'm going to give it a center line so that it can bend in half. And I'll place my point here. Now for all the extra geometry that I don't want, what I can do is mask it out. You have a mask tool here. And anywhere you paint, it will not generate. So now my mesh looks cleaner. It's not very clean. It won't save until you press the arrow and you see it stored in here. Now, if you don't think that's enough, if I look in the inside, it doesn't really have a lot of shape. This is fine for a tree, but maybe for something like what I'm doing, it's not really a tree. I want to be able to get close to it. I want it more dense. You have a tessellation slider. And what it will do is divide it, and you can see it's triangulated, which is fine. I used to think everything has to be quads a long time ago, but I realized some things are just good as triangles. And then you can see I'm storing it. It looks really messy. We'll just ignore that. And once I store this, I hit the button done, and now you can see I have the leaf generated properly. Now the orientation is really strange. You have to go into the settings. I go into local orientation, and then I have my alignment, right? And then I can give it a, adjust the fold or the rotation of this. Let's say I want it like this. And then let's say there's a couple of things. That leaf is being like stabbed through here. I can say certain things to the leaf not to generate so high up. Like maybe I want them to generate the ends. And under generation, you'll have something called boundaries, first and last. So first is 0. So that means it can grow from, this is 0. That's not the right color. Let's try pink. This is 0 and this is 1, right? On the thing. If I say my first will only be 0.5, it can only generate 0.5 through. If I say I only want leaves at the very tip, I can set this to say 0.9, for example. And now you can see 0.9 to 1, it will only generate towards the tip. So that looks a little bit nicer. Now, the other problem is they're really flat, right? So we can see on this cut, it's literally a card. If I select this leaf, I can go under deformation. So you have a local orientation that controls like how it's rotating in space. And then you have deformation, which will bend this. So deformation, we have fold, right? So now you can see like, this is where that making it really dense and tessellating it really pays off. So we get like a nice kind of fold like this. And then I can have it fold backwards, right? We also have a curl. So leaves have a slight curl. And also can curl in the other direction. And then we have a twist. So the leaves can twist and turn. I don't have too much of this going on because the leaves are a little bit flatter because they're very layered and they'll just crash into each other. So I, have a little bit. Now you also have something called variation, which is a plus and a minus. So if I go plus minus fold 0.5, what will happen is some leaves will roll backward and some will roll forward, right? So it's just a variation control. That way they're not all in one direction. So I did something like that. And I did something like that to my curl also, right? So some will curl randomly and then some will twist randomly, right? Now I do have some collision. You just have to kind of ignore it. And there's not too much you can do other than to manually control it. Let's just expose the rest of it, see how it looks together, right? So now I have this section. Obviously, I'm not going to have that pink, but it allows me to see it. Now, there's other more complex things I have going on to control the directionality, right? I'm using forces. So let me show you what one force will do. So let's say I have a direction force and the icon's really little. I can size the icon up. It will not change the strength of it at all. It just makes it so I can see it. And right now it doesn't seem like it's being affected. So if I select this generator, which is the first one that was growing from, and I go to forces, oh, it is actually affecting it. I have it on here. And wherever it rotates, you can see it's following that. Now it's doing it to the whole thing. What I am doing to art direct this a little bit more is if you go under your force, you can turn on attenuation and it gives you this little fall off circle. Anything in this white circle, it's really thin, will be affected. And you can also control the size of it, right? So now here I can say for these guys, maybe I want them to start pointing out in this direction, for example, right? And then I'll do a couple of these forces so it looks nice. And then at the end, I'll kind of look at it and go, well, what is this mess here, right? It's a lot of collision. We can change it to node mode, which is why I was saying it's incorrect, what I was saying earlier. And I can just delete the leaf. So I can just look at this leaf and hit delete, and it will allow me to manually delete that leaf. I can also select the leaf and I can adjust its position, right? And then that could help it. So you can see I can kind of bend these out. I don't necessarily have to do that to leaf itself. I can also do it to stem. This looks a little bit crazy for me. So it does take patience. So let's just say I don't do this a lot though. I try to get it all in the generators first. Let's just say this one's colliding. I can select this and I can rotate this. Right? I'm not doing a very good job right now because I don't know what these sliders. Usually in the past they used to have words, so I know what the slider was, and right now I don't know what they are. I just upgraded, so I guess I just have to remember what these little symbols mean.
This minimalism UI stuff, I'm not a fan of.
No, but they used to have words, and I'm like, what is this again? And they move everything. But you can see, eventually I'll figure it out, and I can position that. But hopefully, this solution where I'm manually doing it is something it's at the end. And I'd rather use forces like this. And you can use a combination of different ones, right? So you can get like a nice look. You just have to break it up to sections. So, that's what I have here. This one looks much nicer. So if I just show you a breakdown of one area, so let's hide that. So this is where I started with this. And then again, I masked out a black and white map so it doesn't grow underneath. And what I then did is a variation where these are longer and they have a little bit more volume. And there's not as many of them, there's less. But they just make it so it's not so flat against the wall. And then notice here I have a lot of gaps, which I wanted to hide. So I created a third set here, and they're just like little leaves to kind of cover it up. And they just are meant to lay flat. And then once they're kind of together, they look much nicer. And I have less little gaps and stuff like that. And then right now, what I'm working on is on this section. So you can see how I broke that up. And then I'll break up the entrance so it looks nicer. And then you can see to the sides, things like that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And hopefully I can do this really quickly. I just, started yesterday. Yeah. You're good?
Yeah. So I could take over. So
Oh, well, quick thing. NetBug under post section has a system for collision alternative. I never like what that does. It like knocks all of them out so that none of them are seen. So I'd rather not use it, but I wish it worked. So yeah.
Yeah. So here's another one here. So let me show it here because all of a sudden now it's working, of course. So watch it not work anymore. But so you can see this freaking button that was just not there before, right? So it's very simple. You just create this thing. You make sure you tell it how many subdivisions you want. Okay, you're good with that. Press apply. You have to crank up the subdivisions. Then we could just come over here to our displays. I already have the map plugged in, so it uses the last map, but I just drag it in here. It's also using the last mode, which is textured 2D. The default is actually Perlin noise. So this is what you probably would get by default. So you just have to set this back to textured 2D map and then drag the texture in there. So you can see it's cool. It gives you a displacement, but this does not look as good as it will look if you grab that map, bring it into ZBrush or Mudbox, and then import it back into Unreal. It's just not going to look as good. I wish it did. It just looks faceted, and I can't bring up the resolution any higher. So you could see this is giving me a limit. I try to bring this to like 22, it'll say, oh, it can't go any higher than that. So kind of sucks. But if you absolutely need to do something, maybe for background stuff, like that's fine. So once you apply the displacement here, you could just press accept, right? You would have this. Give it a second. It's going to convert it into an asset, and then I want to convert it to a nanite. So you would have that. So you can see it puts it into a generated folder. What I would do then is double click on the asset itself and convert it to a nanite so that it would be much faster. Okay. But again, I don't like how it ends up looking, but I just wanted to show you that there was a way of doing that. So I'll just show you. Let's just build a valley like that one that we just did and texture it. I remember when I transitioned over from World Machine originally to Gaia, I thought that the sculpting stuff was, without a doubt, way better, but I found the texturing to be extremely difficult initially. So I figured it out. I got it pretty good now. So I just wanted to show. And again, I showed this in class this week, like in two of my classes. So I feel like I'm just showing the same thing over and over this week. So, all right, but let's just go through it. So, one of the things I was showing is like, okay, like what if we wanted to create like a volcano in the middle of a valley, right? So, the first thing you have over here is all your basic primitives, and those basic primitives are things like Perlin, which are like the nodes that are in every program, right? They're just the most standard traditional noises. And for a while, this is what was used to create terrain. So if you look at the old Star Trek the movie, it had the fly through of a bunch of terrain. It was probably done with Perlin noises. I wouldn't be surprised. You can see it looks cool, I guess, in certain lighting conditions, like backlit or whatever, but it just looks kind of fake. But that's all under your primitives. And one of the things that I have here is I set this to full, my viewport. The default is something like this. So I do like to have this whole thing take up the entire side here, so I can see everything. The less scrolling, the better. So you can see everything is there. Everything's nice. I could turn this on to show just the basic nodes, the ones that are used the most often. And I do like that actually, because these are really the ones that I do use the most. But I'll jump back and forth sometimes depending on whether I do want these more obscure nodes. So for this, let's just start with something simple like mountain, right? And these are geoprimitives. I don't know for certain if this is what it's doing, but I have a feeling that these are still just using the same as the basic primitive noises. They're just macros. It have a bunch of nodes internal to this node, just to simplify things. That's how I feel it when I see them, because I still see a little bit of Perlin noise here and there. I think that's what it is. It's just like a macro, which is something that they did a lot when Gaia used to be a plugin for World Machine. It wasn't called Gaia; it was called something else. But they were all just really awesome macros. So you can see we could have a mountain like this. I could press bulky to make it, really big and chunky. I think I don't want it to be that big. And we have our seed here, so we could change this and see what we actually want this thing to look like. So this guy's pretty cool. I wish he was a little bit thicker. Let's see. So you have like just unlimited seeds. So we're just trying to find the right one. Usually not that hard to find. Jesus. I think I'm just going to go with bulky. It'll just give me a bigger mountain. Okay, so I do want it to be big like this, but I don't want it to take up the entire thing. And that's fine. We'll leave that alone for now. And I'll just come over here to Badlands, which gives like a really cool ground. One thing I'll do often is I'll just come over here to level, which is this LV button down here. And it's auto levels. And what it does is you can see it actually makes everything look way too powerful. But then it gives you this slider that is called influence. And I'll actually just bring it down so it just flattens this out. Right? So you can see when I turn that off, it's way too strong. I guess I don't even have to press the levels. I could just adjust the influence. It's just one of those bad habits I probably have. But you can see I could just do that. Okay? And so I have this. And I want this to be the mountain, but I want this to be the floor that the mountain is growing out of. So what I could do here is a few things. I want to transform this because I don't want this to take up the entire ground. And the order at which you drag this guy into the other nodes, you can see I just did this, places him. This is kind of confusing, so let me do it with a pen to illustrate this. But you can see there's 3 inputs here. Let me do our epic pen. So we have 3 inputs, 1, 2, and 3. 1 is below, above, and then mask. Okay, so that's the order that we want to remember. Well, not the order, just what they actually mean. So the top node is below, this is above, and then this is the mask. So I want the ground to be below and then the mountain to be on top. So I probably should have done the order like this. So the other way. I deleted the wrong one. So let's just do that. So now the ground is below, and then this mountain is on top. Okay. So with the transform node, you can see I want to reposition this thing. So few problems. Okay, number one is I have this combine node. You can see the blend mode is set to 50%, so I'm going to set it to 100. And when I do that, I completely lose the Badlands, right? The other thing I want to do is make sure that these guys are set to drop to floor. When you start combining these guys together, it's good to have drop to floor turned on so that they're all starting at the same point, the same floor. So you can see the problem is I have this set to blend 100%. I'm just seeing one mountain. I could set this to add. And when I do that, you could see that you are now seeing the ground and the mountain. The problem is it's completely applying the Badlands on top of the mountain as well, which doesn't necessarily look good. Like this looks more like a mountain. Now this just kind of looks a little bit too noisy. So if you want to mask these guys off, how would you do that? So there's a few things you could do. The easiest way to think of Gaia is in its most simple form. If you could figure out what I'm about to show you, you can kind of figure out everything. So it's basically these primitives and geoprimitives. Then you have these kind of look dev filters that just kind of make things look a little bit cooler. And then the most other important thing is these data maps, which are basically how do you create cool masks. That's kind of, if you see it like that, it becomes a very simple to use program. So you're like, okay, I want to mask this. So let me go to my data where I could get my cool masks. And what could I use to separate or to isolate the mountain from the ground? So I could use the height, for example, right? So, oh, that makes sense. You would use the height of this thing to control what areas would be masked and what areas would not be masked. So if I click on mask over here, I could just come over here and start adjusting this. I could invert it. And you could see that now with this thing, I'm controlling what part of the mountain is being masked. So you can see when I do that, it's like, okay, it's perfect. So now the floor is one thing, and then the ground is the other. Sorry, the floor is one thing, and then the mountain is the other thing. So now I could plug this thing into the mask here. And you can see it's doing the opposite of what I want. So let's invert it. Badlands. Is it still getting any of it? I think it is. So let's press normalize just to see. It's not turned on. And let's just set this to blend. And there you go. So now you can see the mountain is not being affected. So you have your ground, you have your mountain, and them together, you have this. Okay. I could go back to this transform, and I still want to scale this down. But the problem is whenever I go to press the transform node to adjust the position and the scale, I lose the ground because I'm pressing on the previous node. So the way around that is just click on this node here, press pin. That way when I click back here, it doesn't jump back and just show me the preview of that node. And then in here, I could just go and say, you know what? I want this to be a little bit smaller, like that. I want to position it over here. Cool. Let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's position it over here. And because this is all procedural, you can see all the height information is being applied and updated on the fly, so which is kick-ass. Okay, so now you have that. So now I could right-click on this again and unpin it. And we have that. Okay, cool. So now we want to create a valley. So let's look at what we could do for that. So we could come over here and go to, let's see, what could be cool. Let's go to worst lands just to see. Not that one. Let's go to range. So these are all our geo primitives. Range might be okay. Let's see. Let's go to Rocky. Now, let's go to, so we're just checking out a few different ones. Igneous. Too subtle. Let's see. Hill. Don't like that at all. So these are all looking kind of crappy. So what I'm probably going to do is this. So what are we trying to do here? I want there to be like a valley around all of this. So it's almost like it's protected like this. All right. So what we'll do here is I'm going to just come over here and let's just use our purlin, which I just called the really crappy one, like this. And I'm going to grab my mask. Which is going to allow me to draw the shape that I want. And what I'm going to do is I'll pin this guy. Then I'll go into the mask. And I'll go to edit mask. And in here, I'm going to draw the shape that I want. Okay. It's a little bit hard to see, but just getting some breakup here and there. So we have something like that. We could close the editor. And if I unpin this, you'll see what we have. So it looks like this. Okay. So I can click on this guy and go to show as terrain, and it's going to look like so. I can bring up the power. To fade it out. Okay. And then I can merge this guy with this guy and set it to multiply. And when I do that, I get this. Okay, I could bring the scale of this to be higher so the mountains look bigger. I could play with the different purlin types. So I do like this one. It feels more mountainy. Okay. And I like that. So now I could go to a combine. And I could drag this guy in the bottom. Actually, let me think about that. I want this guy to be at the bottom and this guy to be on the top. And I could set this to add and blend this in. So this looks way too high. So I could bring that down. Get something that looks like that. Let's take a look at this here. So I don't like that it's adding all that noise on the floor. I just want it to be flat like that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go to this purlin or to this mask, and I can bring down the intensity here. And let's pin this so that I could adjust the settings here. Okay. So at this point, I can come over here and grab a mask. Let's go to combine. And we'll put this guy at the bottom, this guy above it. I'll pin it here. So I'll unpin this guy and I'll pin this guy. And I'm going to press subtract. And I'll come over to my mask, edit mask, and I'm going to draw where I want my volcano opening to be. If you don't like that, we could always come over here, go to erase. It's too much. It's totally fine. Okay, we can bring up the power and press close editor. Okay, So right now, it's not looking so amazing, but we could grab our erosion, plug that into that. Let's unpin this. And we start getting this more alien looking setup here. So what I want to do is I'll pin this here. And let's look at our mountain. And I do kind of want to auto level it to make it taller. And I think I want my mask hole to be smaller. So I'm going to go over here to this guy. And we'll bring up the power, which will blur it. Maybe bring it down. Okay. So I think I don't like this part here. So I might have to add a little bit here.
Nice comments from Bobby R. Wow, thanks so much for the demo, Tran. Speed tree looks awesome. You're welcome. And also, awesome. Appreciate the guy I walked through. Miguel seems a little easier to get started with than Houdini. I bet it is.
Yeah, it's much easier. So, all right. So now we could close the editor. And we have something that looks like that. So let's take a quick look at it and see. So we'll come back over here. And let's take a look at this at a higher resolution. So I definitely think, I kind of don't like that hole. I think it's too big. So let's edit mask one more time. Let's just get rid of this. Let's close that. Okay. Let's play with our lights a little bit just to see it. Let's go to our erosion and we'll bring down the rock softness so we don't lose too much detail. And the cool thing about erosions are they do have a bunch of presets here. So if you right click on these, you can actually get some really cool ones. So that looks too world machine-y. Deposits. You can see very different effects. Let's do strong channels. Ridge eroder. And let's also bring this from 0.5K to 1K so we can get a better feeling of the detail. Hard erosion. Kind of like this one. Okay, so we'll know that's hard erosion, so we might come back to that. Let's go Desert Hills. I kind of like that. Okay, so now that we have that, we can go over to our look dev and let's turn on our shatter. We have to unpin this guy because he's still pinned, so we would not be able to see anything after that. So we have that. We could turn on our What do we have? Our shatter. We could put on our surface. Surface will give us more detail. So you can see, just sharpens that stuff up. Let's do some of these. It's funny, some of these like look great sometimes, but then you use them on another mountain and they look terrible all of a sudden. So we'll try some of these, but they might not look great. So let's put sediment. And that's just way too strong. So I don't want that one. So we'll get rid of that. Let's put rugged. And let's put our carver. Carver tends to be intense, as you can see. What I might do with carver is this. I might grab carver and use it, but I might put it over here. Because I like it. It breaks it. It makes it less world machine-y. But it's sometimes too strong. So let's bring down the displacement amount. And we'll just plug this in. I don't love this this guy here, the hole here. I still am not crazy about it. So let's just pin this. And let's just take a look and see. So maybe what I'll do is I'll subtract it, yes. Maybe not so much. Maybe I'll bring it to something like that. That's kind of more interesting. Maybe a tiny bit more. So you have to picture the shot. This would be an aerial shot for sure. It's like the hidden temple or something. All right, so we have that. Cool. Let's say we want to get to texturing this guy. How are we doing time-wise?
We're about
Done?
yeah.
Well, let me just show this anyway. So what I'll probably end up doing, so I'll do this fairly quickly, is I'll just come out here and start connecting these guys that are called texture nodes. I'm going to do a bunch of them really quickly. We started a few minutes late, so I just put it. So I'll have like 4 of these guys. And basically what these guys do is they look at different attributes that the terrain has. And from that, it generates different like grayscale values that you're going to use to drive the texture. So let's come over here and let's take a look at this guy. So you could see it uses the slopes, which is literally the angles of the terrain, soil, which is like your cracks, and then chaos, which is just a randomization. And right now they're all the same, so they're all going to look exactly the same. But what I'll do is I'll just come over here, change the seeds, change the patches. Like I kind of can't really go wrong here. I just kind of want randomization on each one of these. Probably wouldn't go this fast if I didn't have a clock, right? So you can see we have that guy. So they're all a little bit different. Let's just change some of these so that we get really different results. Maybe overcrank that one. Okay, so you can see very different results, very different results, very different results. This one's a little too similar. So let's just set this to like B. And let's just play with the seed, patches, scale. Again, I just want this to feel very different. And I kind of hate it. Let's bring the soil all the way up on that one. Let's kill that. So all I'm looking for now is just randomization, just different patterns, okay? So all of these are going to be driving different colors. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I come over here and I go to sat maps, it's going to look at this values here. And based off of that, I'll show you here. You can see how there's this, let me just select any color here, like this one here. You can see how I have this ramp here that goes from black to white. And above that, I have this color that goes from red to blue. Okay. You can see that all the areas that are black would be areas that are pushing into the surface are getting this red color. And everything that is getting white, remember, think about this as a displacement map that is being elevated, it's getting the blue, right? And that's how this stuff works. So it's looking at these colors, looking at that ramp from black to white, and then it's going, okay, based off of that ramp, I'm going to apply this here, assuming everything on this part of the ramp is black on your map that you're inputting, this guy over here, and then this is all white. Okay, so it's applying the color based off that. And again, that's this guy here, and that's why we're trying to get this random colors, right? So you can see, you can now come over here and say, okay, I want to get some strong colors in there. So you could go with something like that, something like that. You can see it's also showing it to us two-dimensionally, which is kind of annoying. So you have to right-click on the model and go to pin as underlay. And when you do that, you're now going to see the color applied on the actual model. And I actually think that looks pretty nice. Okay, so we could be like, okay, that's good to go. That's going to be one color. All right, now we could grab a sat map here. And we're going to come up with a completely different color. So let's come over here. Let's try to find it. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We'll come over here. You can see a very different kind of result. You want these to all feel like they're from the same kind of world. So I'm going to look at this and I'm like, okay, that one and that one, I could see these guys being in the same world. So, okay, that's good enough for me here. Now I could go to sat map over here. And I'm going to make this one more sandy. And we'll go with something a little bit more desaturated, like so. Maybe even whiter. Kind of like this one, or maybe something like this. I like this one. This one is beautiful. Okay. And now I could come over here and let's go to sat maps again. And let's go to like some dark colors. Something like that. Okay. All right, great. So now we have this color, this color, this color, and this color. What I want to do now is create cool masks. So I would then come over here. I know that this is what my base color is going to be. I like this one the most as just a standard base color. So now I'm going to go to my cool masks, which will be my flow. And I could start, for example, with my data. My data section is all my cool masks. So I know I like my flow masks. And I'll show you what those are in a second. And I'm going to connect that to the geometry. Cool. That's going to give me this. I can set this to 1-to-1. Set this to primary and secondary. Press apply. And I'm going to get something that looks like that. Cool. I could do a secondary flow map. Come over here. Flow. 1-to-1. Let's see what that does. That's too much. We'll go to tertiary. Let's see if I can bring this down any. No, I want that all the way up. That's fine. Let's press 2x simulation just to see. I like that better. So they are kind of similar, these two, which could be problematic, but I'm going to go with it for now. All right, so let's go to protrusions. These are just things poking out. This tends to be a little bit too everywhere. But I'm going to go with it. Let's bring down the power so that they're less blurry. Let's bring it up. Bring it up some more. Crank it all the way to the top and adjust auto levels. Just down here. So you can see that's going to highlight all the peaks. So great, I love that. Okay, so what else do we have? Let's do slope. So I'll grab my slope here. And you can see this is literally controlling the areas that are sloping down. Okay, so I could do that. That looks fine. I could invert it just to see. Oh, and I kind of like that. Okay, so now these are all my cool masks. And these are all my colors. This is going to be my base color. So now I go, okay, what do I want to be the next guy? So I could go to combine. Or the next guy meaning like the next color. So this will be my bottom. This will be on top of that. Okay, I could then grab the slope. I don't think so. Let's do this one here. And use this guy as the mask. So now you can see we get that cool coloration from that to that. You can see it's going through the flows, the little cracks and stuff of the geometry. Pretty cool. So let's go to this one. This is our lighter one. So we'll do a combine again. This will be our bottom. This will be on top of that. This is using a blend mode with no add or anything. We'll do our second flow, which is our finer flow. Plug that into that. And now you can see we go from this. And now there's this layering effect. We could actually set this to, instead of just regular blend, we could add it. I think I kind of liked how it looked with just blend. And maybe we could bring it down a tiny bit. No, I kind of liked it like that, so that's fine. So you see we have something like that. Now we have our dark colors, which is this guy here. I might invert this guy to get something more like that. We could do a combine.
Showing some magic today.
Yeah,
I think that coloring stuff is really tricky. It's like super powerful, but it's not easy.
It took me a while to get this down. So, okay, so let's grab this slope. I'm going to invert this. And we can plug this guy into that. So now you can see we have these black mountain tips. Let's set this blend mode down a little bit. Let's multiply it. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to color effects. Which is just basically post-process. And I'll grab my gamma, apply gamma, bring it down. Because this stuff tends to look a little bit washed out. I'm going to press equalize, and it's going to look terrible. Then I'll grab that equalize slider and bring it down. That gives it a little saturation and contrast. Let's go to our sky. And I'm going to go to sun intensity and just bring it up. Okay, and we can go to saturation. I'll bring the saturation down a tiny bit. Okay. So let's go back in here. I'm going to go to a combine again. I'll plug this guy into the bottom. And then this guy back onto the top. And then plug this guy back over here.
That's looking nice.
And that'll pick up all the little highlights. So then if you wanted to, you could let me see. This is probably going to have a hard time. I don't normally put it in at the end here. But we could probably put snow or something else. It feels like what it needs is sand, because it's very, very rocky. Okay, so let's see what this actually looks like at full resolution, because right now we're looking at it very low res. So we could come over here. And let's set this to 2K. Gonna take a moment. It shouldn't take that long. Jesus. Let's see what's going on. It just wanted me to re-click on the note. So it's doing it. So right now what it's doing is just the background. It's creating all those maps at 2K. So it takes a moment. You can kind of see where it's at. It's almost done. I think this is the last one. Yeah. So much more detail, much nicer color. You have some nice complexity. We're still not even looking at this at full resolution. We could turn on our atmosphere.
It looks pretty cool.
So it's pretty cool. Yeah. Can you save this live? What do you mean by can you save this live? This is all going to be on the YouTube channel, so it'll be there. So
yeah, so you can go back to the YouTube channel, and if you want to
watch this again. Yeah.
watch certain sections again, you can scrub through it.
You can see it's all there. Now, I could bring this to 4K, and that's where it'll really look amazing. But I'll see how long it takes. It takes too long, then I won't do it. But it really will look amazing because it'll have 4 times the resolution of what you just saw. Yeah. So let's just wait and see. So you can see at the bottom left, it says 012 of 33 building erosion. That's usually the slowest one is the erosion. So let's just see if it takes too Bobby says maybe next time you could show how to. Yeah, I could show that. I could show that first thing next time. No, it doesn't. It didn't crash. It's just it says unresponsive. Okay, I think I come back. Okay, so yeah, I'll definitely show that next class.
Or in this stream.
Same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. it's like a informal class, I guess.
Yeah.
I am noodling my scene. If you were to see what I'm doing.
Do you want to show that what you're doing in the meantime? Wow.
Yeah. Let's take over the screen. So I'm saying I'm doing what I said I didn't want to do, which is like set dressing the leaves, looking at it, look at its collision. And I'm basically just kind of noodling it. Um, I'm pretty patient when it comes to this type of stuff. So I don't find it really, really tedious. The only thing that's kind of hard is figuring out what the handles mean because they keep changing around. But it's a hero piece. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, would I really want to do this by hand because it would be a complete nightmare to do something like that. Like we would just never get it done. I guess part of the reason why, you know, I sound kind of hesitant about saying, "Oh, I'm noodling it," is because normally if I am talking to students or telling them, "Well, you just got to do this or that," they're usually super turned off and they don't want to use the software. Um, but I think that if you ever have to do this by hand, you'll find this is just a huge lifesaver in either case. And I've done a lot of vegetation by hand, and to me, like
That's still easier.
it's way easier. Like just imagine trying to remove all these collisions and try to set dress this. You don't need to do this on a tree. Most people don't look at trees like enough to see if they're colliding. The reason why this is in particular colliding so much is because it's the leaves are really huge. So if they were smaller, it would be probably less visible. You can see here, I have two types of sections here. So this is kind of my base, and I put this one here, which is a little bit longer, and it gives me just like this fluff, so it looks nicer. One of the things I'm trying to do is not have too many leaves because I do want light to be able to scatter through them. But yeah, so I'm just doing like really tedious stuff like this. But it's again, you know, at the end of the day, I just see it like, oh, this saves me time anyway. So I don't have a problem with doing these things. And it's just so easy. I just select them, delete the leaves, move them around, and kind of bend them. But if I show this to a student, they'll again get really turned off and not want to use the program. But I don't see any other option. If you guys know of any other generators like this that are procedural, let me know. That gives you a lot of control because I would like to try out anything that saves me time like this. For me, SpeedTree is my go-to, but I'm, you know, very willing to learn anything else.
I think it's becoming inevitable that we learn Houdini.
Yeah, it just seems like we have to learn Houdini. Like everything that we learn, everyone always goes, "Oh, you can do that in Houdini," and it's like it just seems like a one stop thing.
Yeah.
I'm getting these weird broken shaders, so they're all turning purple, which is weird. It seems inevitable. Then it would just be like, oh, we just know this one tool now instead of 10 different tools. So that's what I'm doing here. I like how it's turning out, right? Ka is, his head's not this big, but he's about this height. So I just have this weird collision on. It's not even part of my scene because it gives me an idea of the character size, and I could see the leaves. And I'm really hoping this brings like a lot of scale to it, like that it makes them look a lot smaller.
All right, I got it. Let me just show this real quick. Okay.
Here's a quick comment. It's really nice. I think the big takeaway for me today is how you are making everything look organic: trees, leaves, mountains, and environments. Fantastic. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, that's really nice.
That looks really nice. It looks really nice inside of Gaia too.
Yeah. That being said, you can see like the atmosphere is super important to get that sense of scale.
Atmosphere is huge.
But look how much detail you're getting in the rocks, and it just feels very organic and not something that would be easy to texture and have this sort of weird patterns and whatever. It's pretty cool. So really nice, very quick. We did this really, really fast, and it would have actually gone faster had I not been streaming, because I think it is really killing it, as you guys saw. But
Oh yeah, if I have Unreal open, or something like that, or like Substance Painter, where it looks pretty heavy on the GPU, it's gonna tank.
one thing I think would look really awesome if I were to go back is putting more sand in certain areas, like really make it feel like there's still just normal, kind of like dune sand in certain areas. Although I do like the color that I'm getting around these little valleys.
The color looks great.
But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
I hope you guys got something out of it. It took me a while to get the texturing down on this thing, so hopefully I simplified it so that you can see it's not as intimidating.
Quick comment from NetBug. I'm doing God's work those sleeves.
Yeah.
Thank you. I will say, like, one last comment. In the Voice in the Hollow, all our colors are like really extreme, and it was cool, but it was also really difficult. Like, sometimes I think the colors were weird, so I'm kind of glad we're back to like
Normal palette,
like a normal palette, and we're not
brown and green.
Yeah, because look at, like, I know if I take that and I just flush it red, it's just gonna look very weird.
Yeah.
It looks really nice like that. So,
Cool. All right, guys. So awesome. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Didn't we have something to say? No, we didn't have anything to say. We will be at Annecy if anybody's going to be at Annecy. And make sure you guys follow us on our YouTube channel also. We finally got 1,000 subscribers. So we've hit the big time.
Yeah, hit
All
the
right.
big time.
All right, guys. Later.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.